All right, so in the very beginning, with the very first intro video, I did promise that I was going to be fumbling, which means that you would suffer with me as I went back to fix some things or if I got new ideas. So in this video, we're actually going to be doing four things. First is we're going to go back to making a few changes to the schema of the person and the contact info models. And what we're going to do is associate a type to the person. So if you remember in the very beginning, we had said that the person model is supposed to be a bit use case agnostic, where a person could be an author or a customer or anyone else. So we're going to give ourselves the ability to differentiate between these records and also eventually have filters in place. The reason for this being, if you're working with just 5 or 6 people, like we will in a project this small, it's pretty easy to remember who's who and how to associate the correct content records with that person. But let's say you're working on a huge project with hundreds of people, it could get really tricky without having a sort of straightforward way to differentiate them. The second thing we're going to do is update the contact info block. Now, looking at the schema for the contact info, what we've done was essentially have an image associated within the block. But now that we know we can't be creating filters based on content in the block of a model, what we're going to do is move this away out of here and actually add it into the person model itself for two reasons. One, a person would have a picture even if they don't have any contact info. It's just common sense to me at this point. And the other one being on this sort of table view, once the image becomes a field within the model itself, we can actually have a much prettier way to visualize the content of all the people and have their avatars show up in this content view itself. So those are the first things we're going to do, which I think is also a great way to really appreciate how a headless CMS works, right? I mean, the content you create is not static. There's always changes to be made. There's new ideas and additions. So the schema and the models are constantly evolving. And it also gives us a good way to go back and sort of refresh the way we've structured things. That's just my excuse for being lazy in the beginning, but hey, it's valid. The next two things we're going to do is actually create some new people, because there's more than just 2. So I'll be creating a few other authors and sort of leaving some background music while I'm doing that. And lastly, we're going to enrich them with blocks for contact info. We'll keep it simple and just assume all the people in this video are authors. So we won't touch the testimonial side of things yet, because there's another few validations we had in place. So yeah, let's get started with first updating the schema to give ourselves a category. So let's go ahead and create a very simple string field for the category of who this person is. Now, right off the top of my head, I can think of two straightforward ways to do this. One could be we give ourselves the ability to only accept certain text in this field, which is great if you are the only person working on a project, but it might be a bit of a shitty UX if, let's say, someone hasn't given these instructions very clearly on the help text, or you have someone new joining the team and there's no documentation for this, and maybe they choose something like writer instead of author. And then there's going to be all sorts of confusion on why they can't save this entry. So let's maybe not go with this option, but give ourselves a radio group. This means we'll have 3 options to choose from on the editorial side of things, and we can just choose the most applicable option. So we would have an author with the API key of an author, and this could be someone who is internally creating content. Then we would have a customer who is, you can get a little cheeky here, well, it's true. And we could just have something for others, which is other people. Let's go ahead and save this, and we can add a new field for the media, which would be a single asset. Let's just call it an avatar and save this for us. Let's also move things slightly higher up so the modular content is at the very bottom. And a small rectification we can do here is just go into contact info and delete the image from here, since we've kind of moved it into the person model and we're not really using contact info anywhere else. All right, so now that we've spent a couple of minutes fixing my laziness and my mistakes, let's actually go and see what this would look like as we start creating content. Ooh, one thing we can do to see how validations also work is maybe go back to the person and make the category a required field. And what this would do is when we now go back to our content editing, we can kind of already see that the image preview should show up here once we have an avatar, but we've got these warnings, right? So Alessio has a current version that's not valid in the draft stage, but I've got two warnings here, for one being the current version not being valid in draft and unpublished, since I had actually published my entry. And this is because we don't actually have a category. So any changes you make to this model moving forward, if you don't actually update the category, you'd get the same error that we had back when we were looking at validations when we made the name a required field. You just wouldn't be able to save it and update it. So let's go ahead and make myself an author, and I will save this and publish it. So when I go back to the content view, I don't have any errors associated with this record anymore. Same thing for Alessio. We'll just choose him as an author, save it, and there we go. No more errors. So now let's go ahead and actually update these people with all of the fields we had associated to them, as well as start giving them some contact info to kind of see how you would enrich them with modular content. Let's start off with Alessio. I don't have anything uploaded, so I'm just going to zip through my folders. Where did I have them? Right here on Files and Avatars, and upload Alessio. Now, what I've done is I'm actually uploading high-res pictures. In the case of Alessio and myself, I've got some compressed avatars, but for some sort of dummy authors, I'm just going to upload stuff that's 300 KB or a couple of MB. So it might take longer on the content view itself, but keep in mind that when we're covering the chapter on the media area, Alessio will be talking a bit about image optimizations and compressions and kind of how the front end could serve different variations. So as editors, we really don't need to care about optimizing and compressing and all that boring stuff. Like Dato's going to handle this for you along with the usage of the ImageX API. But yeah, we'll save that for the media area. So now that we've got the avatar, let's actually go ahead and give Alessio some contact info. Now, I know that he's in Genoa in Italy, but I'm not sure where exactly. So let's assume he's in the city center. And since we're using the Google API field, the Google API here from Maps, we can actually just have a street address, or if we wanted to query for very, very specific places on the front end, the field would also provide a latitude and longitudinal value. So if I'm not sure where Alessio is and I don't know what the street address is, I could just move this pin to somewhere else, update the coordinates, and that's what would be queried for on the front end. I can also give him an email address, which is the right one, so you can spam him for anything or any feedback. And let's just assume he is Alessio P. Aha, now here we also had a validation where this must be a URL. So let's fix this to make sure we can save this entry. Are we using X? Are we using Twitter? But I don't know. X.com Alessio. Give him a phone number and a simple hello there for the bio. And we can go ahead and save this. And just like that, we've now enriched the original people model with modular content using the blocks that we had created in the past. So maybe I'll spice things up a bit. Let's skip the lo-fi stuff that we had in the last chapter. I'll put on some sleazy sax music. And yeah, I'll just speed this up for a bit while I go ahead and create maybe 5 or 6 more authors that we'll use moving forward. All right, so I have gone ahead and actually created a total of 7 people here now. I haven't really associated contact info for all of them. Now that we kind of know how it works, I'll do that in the background rather than having you witness me do things in silence for much longer. But what we can see here now is we actually have a much prettier view to look at. We have their avatars coming in, so it gives us a little bit of a visual cue when we're looking at our content entries. We've also got the ability to see what category this person is, so now that if we wanted to search for these people in the future, we could have very simple filters in place where we could actually go ahead and choose their company, their category, their title, and so on. What you'd notice here is we actually can't filter by address, right? Which is what we had in place for myself and for Alessio. That's because, as we pointed out, you can't really create a filter for associated content from models. But now that we've moved the avatar and the category from into the model itself, we're able to filter it here. So if we wanted to very quickly take a look at all the authors, we would have them here. We haven't really created any customers, so this would be a blank collection. But let's go ahead and just look at our authors. And now that we've sort of got this field, we can go ahead and create a saved filter for us where we have all our authors. Let's give this a little icon, and we can create this as a shared filter. So if Alessio is coming back into the project and kind of wants to see what content I've been working on when he's explaining the media area, he'll be able to see this filter the moment he logs in. And there we have it. So what we've done so far is actually rectify and evolve our schema for the person model. We've gone ahead and added the avatar and the category of the person. We've also created some new ones that we can spice things up a bit, right? Like when we're creating content for case studies and blog posts, we can associate different authors to them. And we've also seen how we can add modular content to enrich the models moving forward. So in the next video, we'll sort of zip through and take a look at creating different content when it comes to case studies. So we're also able to then create more people with which are customers, have them associated with testimonials as well as contact info, as well as look at some of the validations we've kept in place to make sure that we're maintaining the integrity of the content within this project. So there we have it. I'll see you in the next one.